Hopefully I impart you with some understanding of how all of these things that we see on TV, such as the Super Bowl or any other sporting event, or even facilities that you go to, how some of the design is implemented and executed. Our tag is Design for Sport. We actually work on UFC here, the UFC Expo here in Las Vegas. But basically, our entire staff, we not only kind of live, breathe, and participate in sport. We're all designers, and we love to kind of help influence our world as people see it, interact with it, and experience it. We consider ourselves a sport design consultancy. We have 2 offices, Salt Lake City, so we're not far away, in Cincinnati, Ohio. We're comprised of about 40 team members, and over the years, we've worked on over 50 major sporting events and probably 50 sport venues. The interesting thing, and this slide is kind of about our staff. Everyone at Infinite Scale is involved with SEGD. It's an important part of our world. One of my partners, Amy Lucas, is a past president and just came off of the executive board, where they found our friend Clive, who now runs the show. So we're very lucky and have a connection. 2 partners. We all came out of the 2002 Olympic Winter Games, where Amy and I ran the Look at the Games department, and Molly Mazzolini on the right-hand side was with the USOC on the marketing side. So as the Olympics were wrapping up, we didn't want to leave Salt Lake because we were all transplants, and we decided that, having worked together for 3 years at 100-hour work weeks, we hadn't killed each other. We could probably start a business. So we all had sport in our blood, so we started Infinite Scale. A list of some of our clients. We're very lucky. With a little bit of hard work and a lot of luck, we've been able to work on some pretty amazing projects with some amazing folks. I'm going to talk a little bit about our process. I think, as Eric alluded to a little bit, and then Jen got into it a little bit on, we're all dealing with clients that have their own issues and are trying to communicate something about their businesses, whatever that might be. And I think, and there are challenges within, but ultimately I think you become embedded in their culture and try to understand what it is they're trying to achieve. And some of the things that help us kind of do that are, and we call this it's a brand integration model, but when we look at these projects, there are a lot of things that influence it, and we have to take all those things into account. And ultimately, at the center of that might be the fan experience, right? So we really have to look at this thing in its entirety from a holistic point of view as to the team brand layer. There's a venue brand layer, a partner brand layer, event brand layer, and again, try to create this this system that will help inform and create this sense of place, whatever it might be. And a typical sport venue, I would say, your average is that you'll have 20% of it's a venue brand. That would be, and I'm going to talk about Levi Stadium today, so 20% is about Levi's, 45% is about the team, and then there's a percentage that's about the corporate partner integration and the family that lives in that. And a lot of these facilities, they're so expensive, and they're so a lot of different entities want to be involved in it. So there's kind of a hierarchy that we have to start establishing within these corporate family partnership brands to kind of create a cohesive platform so they can all live together and live in the sandbox without kind of wrestling. We use atmospherics to try to kind of inform the part of the design that we're really having to focus on at that particular moment. So we use, the team, the architecture, your target audience, a venue theme, the region where the place is, as well as event partners and other shareholders, right, and stakeholders. Oftentimes these can, like under event, that could be permanent, seasonal, or temporary. So there, again, multiple layers to everything that we're dealing with that helps us inform how we need to tackle these projects, because they're not, they're very complex, even though if you walk in and grab a beer and a hot dog and go watch a game, you're kind of oblivious to all that. And in a way, that's what we're trying to do. It's kind of like a good airport wayfinding system. If you can get to your gate without yelling at somebody, it's probably a good system. One of the ways that we kind of tackle this is we have created something called the Creative Council, and oftentimes when we're involved with these projects, and I have some friends in the room, friends and colleagues and peers, very smart people, you get into these situations where there's many competing factors and everybody has different initiatives as to what they're trying to achieve with their own brand within this bigger complex of brands and this place that you're creating. And so on the front end, we try to get everybody that is a stakeholder kind of at the same table to talk to each other, because often the contractors and the architects and the contractors may not always be talking to these other stakeholders. And oftentimes you're in a little bit of a silo because of the timelines and all the different factors that are involved in these huge, multi-billion-dollar projects, similar to what's about to happen here in Vegas with the new Las Vegas Raiders Stadium. Basically, we try to get everybody at the table, air out everything that they're trying to achieve, and then try to get them on the same page so everybody is aware. And we act as kind of a brand steward to help everybody kind of move and navigate through this very complex process. So as I stated, I'm going to use Levi Stadium as a case study, and we're going to move through its permanent brand application through to temporary. And along the way, I'll touch on some of the digital applications and executions that we were involved with. But ultimately, Levi Stadium, home of the San Francisco 49ers, home of the faithful, is in Santa Clara. It's about 45 minutes south of the city. And their training facility is behind it. And often people say, why did they move it down there? Their training facility is down there. The land was free. It's not necessarily in San Francisco good for the good or bad, but so taking that brand integration model, this is how we these are all the different stakeholders involved. Levi's is the partner, and it's a great story, not to get too deep into it, but oftentimes these facilities look for corporate partner and naming rights partner, and they do this through a sales process. And Levi's, having been born in San Francisco, and the Niners kind of having that, there's a history there, and I think it boils all the way down to what Levi's was trying to achieve by creating jeans for miners and the name of the San Francisco 49ers. And luckily for us, their reds are the same. I mean, there's so many things that really work to our favor in this, but there's a story that can be told, and I think that's the most important part. It's not like this random bank and this team. So I think it was really easy for us to kind of take all those things I was just talking about, the atmospherics and kind of the things that help us generate ideas, to tell these stories, even though they aren't always obvious throughout this project. This started with the branding, so we worked with Levi's and the Niners to create the Levi Stadium brand. This is shown through a couple executions in the style guide, as well as some executions, both tech drawings and some installations at the facility. You can see some opportunity applications that we started to look at. How do we start to, and I think this goes back to, muck it kind of like with Bloomberg in San Francisco. It's like you have this beautiful piece of architecture. How do you not muck it up? And I think, you know, and I'm a fan of it being integrated versus applied. So I think, you know, that's the way that we kind of think about our projects. In this case, certain applications we know are temporary or seasonal, and they need to go up and come down. Then there's third-party applications, such as some projects that I'll show you that are coming up, that we need the flexibility for these things to kind of be applied in an integrated fashion. Some of these things are digital, such as these kind of, well, this thing's not reading very well, but there's some digital aspects to this as well. And even these graphics where you're seeing the back of the 49ers jerseys, those are actually becoming digital because they found that the process of really, you know, putting up soft graphics has been difficult, and my friend Craig First, who's in the audience, would tell you that as well. So here it is, game day, and you know, it's madness. There's a lot of chaos and noise and celebrations and sadness, you know, on any given day. But what you see is this, you know, again, it's tasteful in a way. Again, we're talking about a sports facility. So we've kind of moved away from that era of the NASCARification of things where everything's applied and it's just a junk show of advertising and branding, and we're trying to make it very much about one thing. And I think, you know, again, I want to reference Eric's talk. I think part of, you know, I like the coherence comment. We actually have to create a consistent or coherent system that applies to these venues because they are multi-use, and our elements, the brand elements that are applied to the building actually have to stand out and stand apart, so you can move through this as you're hearing noise and flashing lights. I mean, it's kind of Vegas. You can't really focus as you're walking down the street. Here you're in a place that has that same kind of like energy and atmosphere, but we need people to be able to understand where they're going and be able to get there, and then have corporate sponsors and different applications kind of stand out as they need to. This is typical. We'll start projects like this probably 2-3 years out, and we'll start to look at opportunities for where these applications can be, what makes sense, both for corporate partner, team integration, whatever that application needs to be. We often influence that, and we, again, try to work with the architects, developers, contractors to do what's right and best for these buildings. So we're making it, there's a, you know, again, not to muck it up. I mean, kind of using the same words. But here's the execution and the way that it is now. There is a digital ribbon board that kind of welcomes guests into this particular partner gate, Intel gate. And then this particular piece up here has now become digital. And as I was stating, the ones on the front are going to become digital. Just easier to change these messages out and have them be a little more affordable in the end and kind of more cost effective over time. You know, we were talking about a $2 billion facility here. These are various executions of both a wayfinding system, corporate partner brand integration, even some of the digital that we typically work with the in-house groups and do style guides and try to get them, again, to have this thing be very cohesive and kind of say one thing and versus being kind of all over the map. And here's some other applications. So in the 501 club, so this is Levi's Premium Club, all of these details we've designed, you know. So again, we could have simply put up, you know, a typical bat wing, what they call the bat wing, their trademarked shape up there. We kind of layered it in as a backlit piece layered into this kind of a slat architecture piece. Yahoo Fantasy Football Lounge and Sports Zone. So again, we kind of brush up on interiors a little bit, so we'll kind of as we move through the process of some of our ideas, that really this, for Yahoo, is kind of more about how do you deliver content in this fantasy sports lounge. We designed all the kind of ribbon boards that move around it that deliver this content, the signage, and then the historical treatments on the inside. And again, at that point, we start kind of bumping into the interiors, and we have to work with them, and we kind of influence that, like, hey, we don't want to see purple through the window at the 49ers red stadium. So really try to, again, push our agendas that are coming from our clients. As part of, transitioning out of permanent applications, we do temporary events. We're kind of a unique firm in that we do branded environments and we do events. So we do the Pac-12 football championship here. All the digital, again, is we kind of drive that with the in-house group that is working on that for both Pac-12 and Levi's in this case. But you can see our applications, and I think this goes back to the kind of cohesive system part. You've got a venue, it's got partners, it's got its own team applications, it's got all these kind of graphics and treatments that are throughout the facility. And then when we come in for an event, we have to kind of do this overlay system that puts a backdrop on that particular event. So that has to stand out from all this other gack and noise, and we try to really create a impactful visual and interesting system for whatever we're doing. Same thing, we did the NHL Stadium Series game here at Levi's as well. This is an outdoor event, which is kind of their, one of the things that they're kind of known for now. They can come into, it's one of the only sports where they can come into like a baseball stadium or a football stadium. We've done both, and have an outdoor game. They've perfected the way that they manufacture and kind of create the ice systems. But you can see the transformation from Levi's, 49ers, Pac-12 to now NHL event. And you can see how useful these kind of graphic treatment applications that we set for Levi's are for these games. And again, we kind of drive all of this interesting story on the field here. So again, I think, if you think about any other sporting event, you really don't have this kind of area to apply graphics or treatments into. I would kind of consider this something similar to an Olympic Games, like an opening ceremony. We basically have just the ice rink in the middle of a football field, and how do we kind of create a theme that kind of explains what we're doing here? And this was this idea of the Sierra to the sea, Sierra to the Pacific. We basically built up to 9-foot tall mountains, as well as, just to give you a sense of scale, these graphics on the ground here are 8,000 square feet apiece. And then we have a whole entire greenscape, and then there's 14,000 plants, and then there's an ocean on the end. So it allows us to play and kind of get, creative and have some fun with some of the things that we're doing for something as simple as a hockey game. So with that, I want to kind of transition then into COPA America. So COPA America was a temporary event that we worked on last summer. It was the first time it was in the United States. It was the 100th anniversary of this event that happened, which is CONCACAF and CONMEBOL. CONCACAF is the North American group of soccer federation, which includes Canada and the U.S. and the Caribbean, Mexico, and then CONMEBOL is all of South America, so Chile, Argentina, Brazil, etc. And so I'm starting with this shot because it started at Levi Stadium last summer. This was a 20-day event. Here's the branding. We actually received the branding from a group called The Works out of the UK. I'll get into that in a second. But here are the stats. So this was a 19-day event. It was 10 cities, 10 venues. 8 of them were NFL stadiums. The average attendance was about 47,000. The highest attendance was 84,000. Over about 1.5 million people watched this event. It was big. It was like the World Cup. and really kind of ignited that kind of passion for soccer again. That happens every 4 years, you know, with the World Cup that hasn't been here since LA a long time ago. But it was a very, very cool event, and as you can see with the kind of media stats, you know, it was big time. So we did receive this identity work from this group called The Works, and one of the things that we kind of wanted to do was pull back from the typical, what I would say if you watch World Cup in Brazil this last couple of years ago. Lots of color, not a lot of brand. You don't really know where you are. There's really not a lot of messaging. It's fine in its own way, but we wanted to kind of shift gears and make it have a little more of a focus and give it a little more punch. So we started looking at this thing kind of. We kind of took away all the color in the mark because we knew we were going to be dealing with all these countries, their flag colors and their crest colors. So we started to strip it down and started to look at how we can kind of deliver the brand as kind of more of a one color or two color, and then let the team marks and country identifications kind of come forward. So just to give you a sense, and again, I would bore you to death and maybe blow your mind at the same time if I showed you all the studies, but we just had a lot to think through. And so again, a sample of the crests. And so what we started to do is, you know, we always start with sketches just to get our heads around it and kind of create a flavor. And we start to look at how we can, you know, kind of apply this to Levi's. How we can kind of take, and this was when we were still kind of in the all color on deck thing. And we start to look at it even as it extends into ceremonies, etc. How we could take some of these kind of experiential pieces and have them work in multiple ways. But again, because this is kind of a Digital Signage Expo, and I thought I'd touch on some digital, one of the things that helps us immensely in our temporary event projects is when we get the look of the game, is what we call the graphic system, to play with the digital. Because when they don't connect, it often is a miss. And I think, you know, any designer wants to get their hands on stuff. They want to change colors and fonts and whatnot. And to us, again, that consistency helps kind of deliver a temporary event and really give a sense of where you are at the particular time. So what we started with was this interchangeability and this kind of need to go from country to country and team to team. And we started with the video boards because we thought it would be the easiest way to kind of like start to look at the multitudes of ways that we could kind of tackle it. So these are some studies of our digital concepts. And then you can see how some of this plays out. We ultimately created a digital style guide for each venue, for all venues, based on different proportions and sizes of the jumbotrons or ribbon boards or whatever the case may be. So you can see kind of conceptually on the left to some real images on the right. Some ribbon boards, sometimes there's a single ribbon in a facility, sometimes they're stacked, and we can start to play between them and get kind of more of a read. Again, pretty simple graphics. And then all that translates, and again, it all needs to translate across the entire application execution of what we're doing. So you can start to see how we created these kind of shapes that were kind of informed by both the kind of a flag idea as well as this kind of celebratory kind of ray thing. And you can see how it kind of plays out between country or just pure brand of the game. And these are just variations on styles, a few of way too many, adding a little dimension through gradients, shapes. And then, you know, one of the key things on the pitch was that on camera, on the broadcast side, we'd have the team applications be interchangeable because there were 3 matches at each venue. So these pieces very much feel like the core brand system, but they change into the country identification. And again, these are the kind of the 3 samples I'm showing that, just to give you a sense of a few of the studies that we went through. And then as we, start to look at each venue basically creates, its own opportunities. Levi's we were very familiar with. But you can see from the studies to where we ended up, kind of really came together. But again, each venue that we go to, presents different opportunities. So the look inherently changes a little bit, because even though it's the same graphic system, we don't have the same opportunity at a venue like the Rose Bowl or some others that I'll show you here in a sec. And part of any event like this is that there are details like that application on the bench. We basically work with the broadcast groups to understand what they're seeing in their cameras. We're going to get that all the way down to a treatment right behind their heads, or in a locker room. And again, these are various facilities here. But there are a lot of details to this, and it's, and to a lot of people it's kind of lost on them. They just go, oh yeah, there's some, there's the game. But, it's really a very involved process. This particular project we worked on for about 1.5 years. And then the FIFA scandal hit, and then we shelved it, and then they brought us back on in January of last year, and we executed this whole system in about 6 months, from design to production to installation. So again, some various details and treatments across. That was in Seattle, University of Phoenix Stadium. And again, some of these shots are like pre-game or whatever, but you can see how the digital in the background on the Jumbotron is really relating to the graphic system that's, fabric or vinyl. This is in Philadelphia. And again, from this treatment on a tunnel cover in the foreground to the treatments on the back, they all start kind of playing nice together. This is the Rose Bowl. And again, it's not the most kind of tech infused, and there's a lot of, kind of low treatments. But even here you can see, that again, that's a simple video treatment, but we even kind of worked on the style guide to say, look, if the idea of these are rays, then the movement is like a ray. It's not going to be like doing donuts in the air. So again, we kind of talked to them about the concept of what these graphics really need to be doing if they're moving around. So the finals were at MetLife in New York, where the Jets and Giants play, which we actually worked on that project as well. And originally for the Jets and the Giants, we did all the original digital applications for them as part of our delivery of that project. So we were very familiar with this facility as well. And you can see that they had kind of digital treatments down on the field level as well as up on the ribbon boards. You can kind of see it here in the background as they're presenting the teams. And again, it's that consistency in this type of environment for this particular project for a temporary event that actually holds it all together. Although there's still a lot of chaos and noise, and it's just part of this world that I'm playing in. That we have if it doesn't hold together, it's not really doing its job. Here we are at the finals, and I was hoping Argentina would win, but Chile came through again. They won it for the second time in a row. But anyway, I guess we'll do questions and answers later, but that's my deal. Right?